we got our morning started off with a defensive battle here between Texas and Ohio State. Neither quarterback looked great. I do think Sane looked better than Arch. But the talk of the morning until Alabama decided to not show up for their game was how rough Arch looked. Contrary to what most people expected, he was the Heisman favorite. And even though none of us went that far, we had varying degrees of hope/good expectations for him this season. And he just kind of looked like he regressed. And that really stalled Texas' offense. Ohio State did play very well. Their defense was really good. But even their offensive line really struggled. They struggled to run the ball well, under 3 yards per carry. Texas' front seven did their job there. But yeah, I think Ohio State was very opportunistic. Even that fourth line stop on the goal line is huge. They've done it yet again, getting that pick.
The 4th and goal touchdown themselves.
Correct. That's the reason they won this game, because if you look at just the box score and the team stats, they were outgained by Texas. Texas ran the ball a lot more on them. But yeah, they were just opportunistic, and they get the big win at home. I'm just going to go and start. We can talk about Arch Manning. What did y'all see from him? There wasn't really much to like. I will say he hit a couple big throws late. That was like, there's the potential. That's a great ball. The touchdown of Parker Livingston. The outside shot to the tight end. I'm blanking on injuries.
Injuries,
Injuries. Was a great ball. But for the most part, just poor mechanics, in my opinion, and not really throwing with much anticipation.
Yeah, it started out really rough, and it's really confusing as a takeaway, because I think JP said it really well in our group chat, is like we had not seen any of the issues we saw from Arch at all in previous game footage, high school tape. It was just kind of out of the blue. And so right now, I think it's pretty easy to chalk it up to you were playing Ohio State, they're full of future NFL players on defense. You were playing at Ohio State. It's a really hard place for your first real start. I mean, you played State at home. I think you played ULM at home. So I think it's really easy to kind of chalk it up to that. But it was pretty concerning. He just didn't get a lot of great looks. His completion percentage, or adjusted completion percentage, so that accounts for drops and et cetera, 62%. That's not great. It was 82nd out of 95 qualifying quarterbacks so far through week 1. His yards per attempt was 5.7, which was 72nd out of 95 quarterbacks. And then his time to throw, this is what's really concerning, 3.28 seconds. That's really slow. His 90th out of 95 quarterbacks so far in week 1. So he was holding the ball a long time. Shout out the offensive line for giving him that much time. And so I guess then the question becomes, was her wide receivers just not getting open?
They were not.
Yeah.
I can go ahead and tell you they were
Correct.
not. Ohio State, Josh Pate said they literally blanketed them, and Pate was there on the sideline.
I think that's the best secondary in college football right there.
Yeah. I mean, Caleb Downs has a chance to be #1 overall pick. I thought Espinosa was incredible yesterday. I thought, considering how he has played in years past and the big penalties he's had, to not have that against that Texas team was a huge statement for him and can only improve his draft stock going forward. For Arch, he did not look good, obviously. 38 passing yards going into the fourth quarter. 38. That is bad.
That's bad.
That is bad. Yeah. Whether you think Arch is good or not. And there are a lot of people there's people that are saying he's the most talented quarterback in the world right now, Dan Orlovsky. And he deserves to get flack for that. But I would chalk it up personally. I think it was just one bad game. Quarterbacks play bad games all the time. Mahomes has played 2 bad seasons in a row, and they've won the Super Bowl and lost the Super Bowl. So quarterbacks are going to play bad. You're going to have bad games, but I can't disagree with the fact that he was very poor mechanically. His footwork was really, really bad.
He kept trying to sidearm it.
There
for
were
no reason.
A lot of. Pate also said he was standing there on the sideline, and you could watch Arch, and you didn't even have to see where the ball ended up. As soon as he released it, you could tell, oh, that was overthrown. That was underthrown. Oh, he missed.
Yeah.
And that is not something we've seen from Arch, and so their concern there is completely understandable. I think he'll improve on that, obviously. His receivers are going to get more open against other teams. Texas is not a bad team whatsoever. I think the biggest takeaway from that game is that two playoff teams just played a playoff type game, and it was just
Sure.
happened to be a defensive battle the entire way. I also think one of the biggest takeaways from the weekend, and a big takeaway from that game, is, my God, we might have a season of who knows who's
Yeah.
going to win, because it does, to watch what is just supposed to be the two best teams in football for a lot of people. Penn State could be in that argument, sure. For them to play like that, defensively they played excellent, but for their quarterbacks to look like that, even Julian Sayin was not tremendous throughout that game. It now brings the question of, man, it feels like anybody can really win it.
Yeah.
And that was something that people were previewing and people thought might happen this year, and it only feels like more true after watching that game yesterday. I want to say another thing on Arch. I thought his escapability looked really, really good. Not that he is, to bring up Mahomes again, I sound like, what's his name, Chris Collinsworth right now, glazing Mahomes, but I thought his escapability looked Mahomes-esque.
Yeah.
He is not necessarily the fastest guy, but he has some wiggle to him, and he had 10 carries for 38 yards. And let's be straight, like, that's basically an NFL defense for the most part.
Yeah.
For him to be able to escape and still find scrambles here and there, I thought was impressive. I was, though, concerned with he did not get push. Like, they ran the tush push a couple times throughout that game, and there was really nothing for Arch. And I think that's something concerning going forward. Like, he's just not physically big enough to run through anybody, it
Sure.
feels like. And, yes, those are NFL-type bodies. But for him to be able to do that at his size, I think is concerning going forward. Like, that's a quality you expected him to have. It's just kind of that moxie and that ability to just run through someone, gain the tough yards. Like the 4th and goal on the one on the QB sneak, that should be a touchdown all day, like with Arch. And for that, him to basically go backwards on a QB sneak, I think is concerning going forward potentially for Texas. But I'll say, like, if you asked a Texas fan earlier this week, are you happy with these things? Do you think you're going to win the game? You throw for more yards. You run for more yards. You hold Ohio State to 2.9 yards per carry. Ohio State scores 14 points in their own building, and they're 3 for 12 on third down. Would you think you won the game? Would you take that?
Yes.
100%.
100 times out of 100. And they did not win the game, and that's why we play the games. That is a reverse padlock stat, Josh Pate would call it. That was an impressive performance, I thought, from Ohio State collectively as a group. And it was something I kind of expected them to the roster just beat Texas's roster, which
Yeah.
I think is a great statement for Ryan Day. But I think, again, the biggest takeaway is those were two playoff teams that just played a playoff type game. Let's not overreact and call Texas terrible. Let's not overreact and call Arch bad. He looked bad. That doesn't mean he is bad.
Yeah.
My long-term outlook on him is still very high. There's just clearly some things to clean up. And mechanically, I am a little worried that, like, I'm not sure that's, like, he's just going to flip the switch and roll into next week or week 3, and that's going to be all cleaned up. That's a takes time type thing.
You want to flip it and talk about Ohio State?
That's exactly, yeah. I mean, even just both teams, like, talking about them both being playoff teams, there's definitely stuff they can work on. I think Texas offense got out-schemed, as someone said in the chat, just like the game plan is better. Matt Patricia did a great job. But then on Ohio State side, as good as the defense was, and JP mentioned, I thought the secondary was fantastic. Even like Jermaine Matthews had a great game back there. I think both their lines were like good but not great. I think they both have growing to do. The offensive line really struggled to get push in the run game. And then you're playing one of the best front sevens in college football. So like you're never going to get consistent push, I guess, but they didn't have a single run of 10-plus yards. They never even like popped 1 or 2, and I would have loved that to at least have been the case. And then defensive line, I would have liked them to get more pressure on Arch because Arch really did have a lot of time to throw. The Texas O-line did a good job protecting him for the most part. So they'll need to work on that. But it's just a huge Week 1 win for them. 2 new coordinators, a ton of new players. and you go in that game where you look like the more consistent team, you look like the more prepared team, the more gelled team. And I didn't expect that, so huge props to them for that.
We want to talk about Jeremiah Smith. Didn't have the best game yesterday, which was interesting because Jack talked about earlier off air. Last year in the playoffs, Smith had 1 reception for 3 yards. Is that right? Something like that?
Yep.
It wasn't a lot. Got shut down again yesterday. I think the most interesting thing was the drops. He had 2 drops yesterday. Last season, the entirety in all 15 games, he had 1 all year. So that was a little odd to see him come out and immediately just like start dropping balls. Not exactly what you want to see from what some people think is the best wide receiver in college football right now. But he wasn't necessarily helping Sayin out. But
I mean, I also think he had a fine game. The drops aren't great, but they schemed us open looks. He had 6 receptions, a little over 40 yards. Texas just wasn't going to give him anything all game.
yeah.
And so at that point, you take the easy stuff. Sayin missed him on the 1 touchdown early in the game. He beat his guy downfield, was wide open.
Yeah.
And Sayin just tries to hit the tight end on an out to convert the 4th down. He never looks downfield. So, like, it's maybe not the game we've come to expect from Jeremiah Smith, but I think he's played his role just fine, aside from the drops. I'm not really worried or anything like that. So
Yeah, no, I thought he actually played well. The 2 drops, I think, were more just a nerves, I guess. First game of the season, big moment. You're the cover of the football, the video game. All the hype is there, and I think that was a part of it. Also, you're adjusting to a new quarterback. Like, that's something that doesn't get talked about enough, is that when you have a new quarterback, he throws the ball differently. And so when the ball is coming to you, it looks different. It flies different. It tails off different. And perhaps him and Sayin just aren't on the same page there yet. And so he is more so adjusting to where the football is coming from and where it's going to be than at the end of last year, where he knows how Will Howard's balls look. Immunity on that.
yeah, I'll give you that one. Just real quick, talking about the nerve thing, I think it's a great point because especially the first drop on the little like screen type play out in the flat. To me, the thing like he got over eager of like, now's my chance. I'm going to take this and go, and just tries to run without catching the football.
Yeah,
first.
he's playing against a team that held him to 1 catch and only a couple of yards in the playoff last year. And so when you get, I can tell you from playing travel basketball, like when a team is taking you away, when they're trying to take you out of the game, when you find yourself in a moment where like, oh, I can actually make something happen, you press. You get nervous, you overstep, you try to really, really take advantage of a simple play. And I think that's well characterized on that, especially that first drop for Jeremiah Smith. I thought, Andrew, to answer your question, Sayin looks a lot more like Kyle McCord than he does C.J. Stroud. He does not have the ability to throw it deep with strength. He can throw a lobbed deep ball, as he did to Carnell Tate for the touchdown, but he's not a guy who's just going to drive the ball down the field 25, 30 yards. And I knew that coming in. I saw that, especially watching his film. So I think that's a question going forward for Ohio State, is like they don't necessarily have a vertical threat.
Sure.
They have elite receivers that can get open downfield, but they don't have a guy who's just going to drive it in between the 2 safeties on a post route, drive it up the sideline for a back shoulder, one-on-one with Jeremiah Smith. He's only going to be able to throw the kind of deep ball he threw to Carnell Tate for the touchdown yesterday. This season, I think that's a huge question going forward for Julian. But I think it's a positive. Like, he beat Texas. They won against Texas. And so going forward, he's more than likely the starting quarterback. And he still, I thought, handled himself really well considering the defense that he was playing. Pressure was in his face a ton throughout the game, and he still handled it pretty well. No running game, and he was still able to make a few plays here and there. I thought, to continue on Ohio State, 3 guys defensively. I already talked about Igbinosa. There's 1. But Arvell Reese looked amazing. 9 tackles and a sack. He was flying all over the field. And then Sonny Styles was flying all over the field as well. I thought those 3 guys just looked really, really good. And it was an Ohio State defense that's replacing a lot of pieces, especially in the front seven from last year. And Arvar Reese and Sonny Styles just kind of fit right in immediately. Caden Curry played well, 6 tackles, didn't have a sack or anything like I kind of expected him to. But I thought defensively, Ohio State looked really, really good. And celebrate defense, as I say. They won the game because they played so well defensively. And I think they're going to earn the right to be the number 1 team in the country this coming week.